What's up, Kingdom of Rock? This is Matt Gibson, and we're here for a second time on this awesome. What day is it, Mike? I don't even know what is today.
Let me check my. Oh, thanks. Who said it's Wednesday the 8th?
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. Yeah. What?
Yeah, it is. Every day is Saturday, I think.
It's like Groundhog Day. It's like oh, got more awesome musicians on the show today. We've got Mr. Kurdt Vanderhoof from Metal Church and Joel Hoekstra from every band in the entire world.
Yeah.
Whitesnake, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Night Ranger. Are you still playing with Night Ranger?
No. That's been about 5 years now.
I should have researched that better. But you were great when you were in Night Ranger.
Don't forget Cher.
Cher. Oh yeah. Okay. I don't even think I knew that. I need an intern, Mike. Who's going to research all this stuff for me? I can't keep up with all these musicians. But anyway, so we've got awesome guitar players today, and Mike's dogs.
No,
that's mine.
Those
are Kurt's dogs.
Yeah. Don't blame me this time. It's not mine.
Oh, he put them in the pen.
No, I just put them outside the room because I knew they'd be doing that at some point during the show.
Hey, thank you, Kurdt, for absolving me from this particular.
Hey, I'll take the heat. What can I tell you?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I love dogs, and they're kind of metal dogs, and that's kind of cool. So
well, they're noisy.
Yeah, they like to scream. Well, so we're in the middle of this COVID-19 thing, and it's making it way across the entire world and ruining everything, and taking money out of musicians' pockets, shutting down all the venues, making it hard to make money as an artist. So how are you guys being affected by all this stuff? Joel?
Well, I mean, I was in Singapore with Whitesnake, and we were headed to Japan after that. And Japan had kind of reached a little heavier point with it before the U.S. And suddenly, a day and a half later, we were like on our way home. We just got word like, nope, we're not going to Japan. So that's not happening. Sorry. And heading home, that was like, all right, so what am I going to do now that we're not playing in Japan? That was like reality hadn't sunk in about this thing. And I think every day everybody's been learning, but David has some health issues that contributed, obviously, because he needs to get hernia repair surgery. He made an announcement. But basically, I mean, even that is really affected by this because he couldn't get in to get the surgery because of the current condition in the hospitals and them not taking elective surgeries at the moment. So that canceled Europe and the UK for us, and consequently the US. And so I just watched basically my whole massive year with Whitesnake go. So I mean, it was an eye opener, but hey, man, it's all good. I just I go with the philosophy of trying to be productive every day and just let work create work. If I stay busy and interact with people and play my guitar, then I'll take what I can get. And I'm really blessed because I'm not one of those people living paycheck to paycheck and on my last dime. So I feel very blessed in that regard. I feel really bad for the people that are living that way. So I can't sit here and piss and moan and complain. I got it really good, man. I just need to regroup and find some plan B options for the year and hopefully be out, back and get a lot of that touring back with Whitesnake next year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as and one thing I will say, everybody that I know that knows you, Joel, says that your work ethic is off the hook. So you've always been, they're like, man, he's like 100% business when it's time to do business, And so I'm sure that work ethic has carried you quite far in your career to lead to the stability. And we have a lot of younger musicians watching the show that, haven't quite gotten to that point. What would you say to them as far as when if you get caught with your pants down and you haven't worked that hard to get to where you're at, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, everything I've gotten has been through hard work, and I could trace it all back to some moment where it makes literally no sense what I did, like working for way below minimum wage, and that led to somehow having a big gig. So I think that you need to just work no matter what, if it's what you're going to do, and let the money kind of come to you. but no, don't necessarily grind for it unless you have something that pays you more at the time. I give people that advice all the time. It's like, well, you can't ask for more money on a gig unless you have a gig at that moment that you can take that pays more money. Don't just ask for more money because you want more money, or, I mean, I think for me, it's more about the work and the process. And at this point, somehow I feel like I'm playing with house money, because I came from the suburbs of Chicago, from a family that wasn't all that well to do. And my parents are classical musicians. We were living like artists, just not a lot of money. And I never thought I'd get the opportunities that I've gotten in life. And I grew up in a neighborhood where that was like a dream, and you're not supposed to have that. So I think it's all happened through my parents really instilling that hard work ethic in me, and setting the bar very high, and just being about the process of playing music more than chasing like being famous, or it's just day by day, just everything, try to be productive, and try and outwork the other people, man.
Exactly.
So how about you, Kurdt? How's business going in the Metal Church family right now, as far as all the changes and everything?
Fortunately for Metal Church, we didn't have anything on the books. We had literally toured the world up until about September for the last record. And because I was relocating and selling my house and working on a house and doing a bunch of that kind of thing, I said, guys, look, let's hold off. We've done everything. We played everywhere this year. I'm going to move. I got to set the studio up and do all that stuff. Let's start talking about doing something after a new studio album. And so we didn't have anything going. So we fortunately didn't really, it didn't really hit us that hard as a group. The only thing that affected me, I have a side project called Presto Ballet, which is a progressive rock band. We were booked on Cruise to the Edge this year, and that obviously got canceled. So that was the only thing that I've, kind of took a hit on. But like Joel, I'm very, very fortunate that, I'm okay, and I'm not, I didn't hit my finances or anything. So I'm feeling very blessed, as like Joel mentioned, that I'm still functioning and everything's fine. I'm getting a lot of work done, playing a lot of guitar, getting a lot of songwriting done, and getting some records prepared. So for me, it's not that it hasn't hit me that hard personally. But yeah, again, I do feel bad for the people that are working in the service industry and all the things that have shut down. So yeah. So fortunately, I'm all right.
Well, I mean, it's awesome that both of you are not personally affected yet, your finances, because we want everybody to be happy and be able to eat every night.
Oh, I'm definitely affected by it.
Oh yeah, I'm not rolling in the dough.
No, I just
in a heavy
meant
metal band.
Yeah. No, I just meant you're not going to be out on the street, I guess.
No, yeah, I'm not gonna
I should rephrase that. Yeah.
But I mean, it's thankfully I've had that run of gigging, I mean, damn near every day for about the last 12 years. So I've just been on quite a run, and it's a little unusual to hit this stretch. And like Kurdt, I'm working on my album. I'm working on cutting my track. I just took a break from cutting the tracks to do this. And so I'm very excited about that and have an artistic outlet. But yeah, I mean, no question, it's going to cost me a ton of money, but
sure.
Yeah, that's not it.
But for maybe, your experience as kind of veterans who've been very successful for younger musicians or musicians who are just coming up, we've had some on the show. They bought merch. They've taken it, in the shorts because their merch is no good anymore. They don't know what they're going to do. They were depending on that money. Now I realize you can't replace the revenue, but would you have any, helpful words or knowledge about someone who has taken a hit? They are worried about making money. They might be running around driving. Who knows what they're doing to make money, but also trying to keep their morale and their musicianship together.
Well,
go ahead, Kurdt. I'm sorry. Please.
I would suggest that you realize that this isn't going to last forever. This is going to pass, and when we come out of the other side of this, we're going to be better off in a lot of ways. I mean, not to go down any political route, but this will pass. We're going to get through this, and things will pick up and get back to normal again. So, I mean, if whatever you have to do to get through it, I mean, there are things going on and opportunities for loans for musicians through that people have lost gigs and things like that, and there is forgivable loans available and things like that have been set up. So there are some opportunities out there that'll help. But but I guess kind of like Joel, you do it because you love music. Then the money will come if you do it for the right reasons. So
just curiously, I see a lot of comments happening on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. How many of you guys out there are working musicians or have been affected by the COVID crisis? Put something in the comments. And also, I wanted to give a shout out. I saw Roddy Chong was in the audience from Trans-Siberian Orchestra. How's it going, Roddy?
Roddy.
And let's see. Let me just say hi to a few people. We've got Rivera Diana, Karen Ann Smith played on Facebook, Deb Welter on Facebook, Gianna West Facebook, Laura Kazanoff, Heidi Whitrock. How's it going, everybody out there? Anne Marie Fassler. I'm sure you guys know some of your fans here for sure. Gianna West. Let's see.
Well,
all right.
Actually, Roddy's prodding Joel right now. He wants you to ask him about social media because he's great at it. I don't do much of it. So I guess Roddy wants you to talk about your social. Yeah.
No. And I will say when, Joel was very professional when he posted about this event in particular. He put all the links, made it really easy for everybody to kind of like find the live stream, that type of thing. So I would like to say props for that. I did notice you do know your social media, but go ahead. What would you say? What do you do to manage your social media?
I think the thing Roddy's getting at is that I still reply to every inbox every day that I get, which is kind of insane because I must answer a good 250 to 300 a day. But I think it's a thing where you connect with people, and it's just my way of being thankful for having the opportunities. I mean, those are people that give me the opportunity to do what I love for a living. And so I try to keep that in mind all the time and never think that it's just because I'm some hot shit guitar player or something. I mean, it's really it is about having fans and people that appreciate what you do and then you giving that back to them. So if you don't do that at the end of the day, I think you're kind of failing as an artist to kind of keep perspective on what things really are. It is definitely a two-way street. So I try to always appreciate when people are supportive and get back to people. I never want to take that, I guess, that elitist route of not getting back to people when they have questions for me and stuff like that. So I try to do that. And Roddy's always like, dude, I can't believe you do that. You get back to everybody every day. And
that's huge. That's good for you. Yeah. That's quite amazing. That's awesome.
But I will give Roddy some props too. When he was on about a week ago, he did answer most of the comments on the thread, but there were a lot of them. I mean, there were a lot of comments, so it's hard to keep up with that stuff. So do you have like an empty inbox strategy, Joel, at the end of the day, or do you just kind of wing it?
Several times a day. Like I'll go through all the inboxes on all the social media platforms, whatever, a few times a day to make sure I get back to everybody. I have to draw the line somewhere, which is answering comments. So like if I post a picture and there's 150 comments on me, I can't go through, and I just can't do that. That would be insane. I would literally never have time to play guitar. So just between, I'm a parent too. So, I mean, I have 2 kids to raise and have a family. So, I mean, at some point I got my music, I got that. And then I do everything I can in terms of getting back on inboxes. And, but social media, I look at that just like another form of being productive. And there's a lot of people that'll sit around on Netflix, and I just think, well, why wouldn't I just post something? You've got X amount of people following you, and they might repost, and just to generate and kind of keep yourself visible. And it also kind of gives you a little daily challenge every day, because if you want to have something interesting to post for people, that means you have to get off your ass and work. I mean, you can't just post a picture of your rug and expect people to be excited about it. I mean, it's like, you got to have something that's like inspiring to people, and that challenges you every day to keep working no matter what. And that is what I would say to the younger kids struggling that are taking a financial hit too, is don't forget to just keep working, because it's I think being a musician is just like being a race car driver, a strange analogy, but they say that if you're looking at the wall and if you're looking at what's going to go wrong, you're going to crash into the wall. So it's really important to keep your eyes on what you can do to fix a problem. And that might be different for every person, but it's really hard for me to hop inside the head of each individual person and where they are. But the really important thing is to kind of keep looking forward at where you want to go and figuring out the things you can control and doing the best you can with it. Sounds corny, but it's true.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
I mean, you can, a good work ethic can get you through a lot of, I mean, just look at the Great Depression when things went sideways, the people that just kept working, kept keeping it together, because fear is what really the big enemy is here. It's, despair, oh, I'm going to give up. My whole career's ruined. No. Just like Steve I was on here about a week ago, and he was talking about when something happens, you have two choices of how you respond to it. You can be like, oh no, it's so bad. And, it's the end of everything. Right. Or it's like, things have changed. There's opportunity. I mean, even in all this, like Kurdt was saying, there's opportunities happening that were not present before this, like in my case, for example, like I've got, 3 awesome people on my podcast right here and a great group of people watching this broadcast that I might not have had this opportunity, at least as easy to make happen as it would have been, back, 2 months ago. You guys might've been too busy. Right. So like, but it's just like that for a musician. Like everything that happens to you bad, it also has an equal opportunity or even a greater opportunity to do something and react to it and take control of your environment, and make different choices and shift and adjust things, but as long as you keep moving, like Joel is saying, that's one thing the military told me, you can keep going. You can just keep one foot after another. It sucks. You don't like this path. It's scary. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to work out, but you didn't know that when you got to where you were before that happened. Like, so if so you're just we're always transforming. We're always changing. The world's always changing. And it's kind of like, you just got to have that, just keep going attitude,
Faith.
and meet more people. And, maybe the people around you are going like, oh, it's terrible. Don't listen to them. If that's what all the people in your band are saying, you need to go hang out with some people that have good attitude, that are trying to make the best of the situation or something better, and just figure it out.
Don't buy into the fear.
Yeah. Well, and the reason for this podcast that Matt started was to try to, embolden people and give them some coping tools to deal with this. But but I also don't want people who have lost a job and have children have no fucking idea how they're going to feed their kids or they don't have medical insurance. What if they get coronavirus? What are they going to do? I mean, there is a lot of fear that is real and totally appropriate. I don't want someone to go like, oh, I'm just going to add to my weight of depression because I should be looking at this like Shirley Temple, like the sun's going to come out. I mean, there are challenges here, and part of this podcast is, and thank you for both of you for being on and sharing your knowledge and inspiration and all that. But, we also just can't go, hey, just smile your way out of it. Sometimes one foot in front of the other just brings you closer to despair. And that's what we're trying to, alleviate if possible.
A lot of the people that work for the tours are in big trouble right now. Like some of them, we had Steve Stevens on, and they said that they had to let go almost their whole team.
Yeah, 20 people.
20 people that have been with them for a long time, and he doesn't even know if they're going to come back, because if this lasts a long time, a lot of the roadies and lighting people and techs and things, they're just going to have to go find something more stable, So that's what I think, that's definitely a real thing. But I'm not trying to make light of that, but I am saying that you're the only person that can change your own life. And if you give away your self-control to fear, you're screwed, so you gotta keep it together. And it's not that I'm saying that people should are weak for being afraid, because it's
No.
not having any money and food and healthcare is a scary thing.
Yeah, that's real stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for real.
But on a more positive note, of Kurdt, I know you've moved in houses and all that stuff, but what kind of things are you doing creatively during this kind of time in your own home?
Well, I have just I just finished writing an album for a friend of mine for Rat Pack Records. Just got the music finished up with that, and kind of took a couple days off from that to shift gears, and I'm going to start writing the new Presto ballet album. So I'm just going to take and playing a lot of guitar. I'm decided to talk to a couple friends of mine and use this medium to learn how to play slide guitar, and kind of something which is, I don't want anybody to hear. Anybody learning how to play slide guitar is probably worse than hearing somebody scrape a chalkboard. But once you get it, it sounds really cool. But the learning process was to be horrific for anybody within earshot. So for me, again, because I'm very lucky that didn't really take a big hit financially and everything. I mean, it just slowed my plans down. But I'm just doing the best I can to take advantage of the time, to work on my instrument, to work on my craft, to get as much work done as I can, and that's what I've always kind of done anyway. So, So
you're pretty much self-contained as a writer. It's like you're the sole writer. Okay.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, well, initially, and then when it's presented to the band or whatever, then everybody else puts their stamp on it and their input on it, and then I put on a producer hat, and then we start working on the record from that point. So just get the basic materials together at first, yeah.
So Joel, what are you working on? Any? Do you still learn new guitar techniques all the time?
No, I don't. I mean, what I do is,
well, he already knows them. I don't.
I definitely keep chops up. Like if there's nothing on the agenda, the very least, I'll usually pick up the guitar and I'll play like a half an hour in each. I'll just break up like 4 techniques and improvise with those techniques for a half an hour to kind of keep my hands going. And that's just like, that's kind of a no agenda kind of thing. I'll just put on a movie on Netflix, even if I've seen it before, and just practice the entire time I'm watching it. Very chill. Just, it's more or less just physical, keeping my hands in shape. And, but I try to get as many sessions from people as possible, do guest solos for people and play on their tracks. And to me, I have a lot more fun playing guitar in that vein, like playing just music, than I do like shredding per se. So I'm totally happy like just to play 1-4-5 on a very high level. If the music is fantastic, then it doesn't really need to be a lot of notes for me to make me happy. So as much of that as possible. I've been given some Skype lessons, but honestly, the big thing for me has been the kids. I mean, I was on tour 285 days last year out of and I have 2 little kids, so they were extremely starved for me. And now we're experiencing the polar opposite of just kind of being all holed up in the New York City apartment every day. And when they go to bed at night, I get my music work done. And that usually is, right now, I'm in the thick of my album. So it's, the name of the project is Joel Hoekstra's 13. And I put out an album in 2015, and now I'm working on the follow-up with that. So it's Russell Allen on vocals, Vinny Appice on drums, Tony Franklin on bass, Derek Sherinian on keys. Did I say Jeff Scott Soto is helping me out singing backgrounds on it, which is amazing. So anyway, I'm getting files from those guys and working on my guitar tracks, and that's coming together really fast and furious right now, which is very exciting. But I'm really only working on it 3-4 hours a night, because I'm with the kids like all day, and then they go to bed, and I've got a few hours of work on music, and that's kind of it. And I'm doing all right. Like I said, it's I feel for people who have it much worse than me at the moment. And you know, my comments on attitude have nothing to do with trying to minimize the pain that others are going through. It's impossible for, as I said, it's impossible for us to hop into their shoes and see what's happening for them. It's the only thing I can speak to is what's worked for me. And of course, I don't know about you, Kurt, but I've always had that just paranoia about, yeah, but what happens if all my gigs go away? And so
Yeah.
I've always been, that's why I never turn any gigs down. And I mean,
Well, the joys of self-employment, especially in the arts, it's like this anyway,
I get,
yeah.
I have people all the time say, well, why you kill yourself? Why do you do all that? Because it all can go away like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always done every gig I could do and did those 285 shows last year or whatever. I've been out that long and was seemingly always juggling 2 or 3 gigs. And it's because I was always planning for a moment like this in the back of my head. I mean, I never would have known it would be a global pandemic, but I always think in the back of my head, do I have enough to like support my family for a year if everything goes away? And so I just,
with the big shift in the music industry a few years back when everything changed, we're finally just getting a handle on how to survive in it now. When the whole Napster thing and the whole internet and digital and piracy and everything, that hit, I thought we were done. I mean, I literally thought it was like, we're done. But we figured out a way, it turned upside down. And now for me personally, speaking from, there's a lot of things about the new music industry that I like. It's a lot better. It's like, the whole direct artist to fans thing. We don't have that filter of major labels. And especially for us veterans, instead of saying old guys, maybe speaking for myself, in the old way of doing things, you were done at 30 because you were going through the filter of the major label and the A&R people. God, I hope you get a record deal. How would you keep going? Well, now there's no expiration date on us. Now it's all up to how much we want to work, like Joel was saying, and if we still do good product and deal with our fans and deal with them directly, the big numbers aren't really there like they were, but they don't need to be because you can do it yourself. So again, taking something that could have been killing the industry and turning it upside down and making the best out of it. And actually, again, for me, I'm finding that, it's allowed me to keep doing this. So, that's a good thing out of the new industry that we thought was done, and you can do multiple gigs now. So.
I definitely feel that way about social media, that it presents the opportunity to work. And I've gotten a ton of gigs through social media. I get people all the time that are like, well, why do you waste your time with that? You see you're always on Facebook and Twitter. I'm like, well, number one, I play guitar just as much as anybody, but the difference is my downtime and how I spend it. That's like my downtime is instead of lying in bed and watching TV or Netflix. TV's kind of even outdated.
I don't watch television for years. Yeah.
I just pick up the phone and get back to people and see what's in my inbox and set stuff up. And you can kind of keep yourself busy out of doing that too and find opportunities. And without a doubt, I mean, it's a certainty that work creates work. So people should take solace in that if they're willing to work and keep working with others, that you will indeed get recommended for things. I mean, I've been through the similar moments in my lifetime a bunch of times where it's like, oh my God, I've got no gigs. Like I came to New York City from the burbs of Chicago where I was raised, and I was in a theater show out here called Love Janis. That was about Janis Joplin, and it ran for 2 years, and I was in New York City all of a sudden, right? And then it closed, and I had nothing, man. And I was like, oh my God, I live in New York City and I have no money coming in. How am I going to make this work?
Bad place to do that.
Yeah. No money coming in. And at that time, not a lot of money saved. So trust me, I was a lot more panicked then than now. But I just made a mental decision just to like do everything, get out, like go to people's houses, their apartments, write songs with them, go, every day was something. I just set something up for myself that I was doing. And eventually that work kind of grows and grows. And then when you actually do have somebody offer you money because your time is valuable, then sometimes you don't have to do the freebies. But I would work for free still today. It's not necessarily a matter of money. I think the money will come if you just make yourself busy and work.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully people will have those opportunities. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy to get through this. Again, to what Michael was touching on, saying, I mean, we don't want to just paint it like, hey, no problem, like you got this, just work hard. But I'm just saying what's worked for me in the past, and And that's all I can do. I'm certainly no expert on any of this stuff. This is my first pandemic. I don't know about you guys.
Right.
Well, I think you are an awesome expert as how to keep going in today's music industry, because being diversified and keeping the work going as you have, and I mean, who knew that gigs were going to go bye-bye? But it's the same thing. Like, you're always worried about, am I going to get the next session? Am I going to get the next tour? Well, all of a sudden we're not playing live. But today, keeping in front of your public, like Kurdt was mentioning, about and you too, social networking, letting people know you're out there. I think sometimes, especially when I was at a guitar player, it amazed me how many times I would get either big or medium level artists who would go, yeah, man, I don't do that stuff. I mean, I just play music and don't care about the rest of it. And that's like kind of having the sword of Damocles over your head, because it's someday, well, hey, look what happened. There's no gigs,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of why I got into production back in like the late 80s. When I got out of Metal Church, that was the reason to get into production, to learn how to engineer and produce and learn how the gear worked, and started putting together my own studio. So that's been my salvation through lean times when there hasn't been any gigs, or a particular band or project I was working wasn't doing anything. I could work in the studio doing commercials or producing other bands, local acts, any of that kind of stuff. So that's exactly what I did to get out of that, because there was a time when all of a sudden we were playing, then we stopped, and there was, there was nothing. And then also learning that, I had a real, my interest started lying in the creative process more than living on a tour bus. But so that's why I did the same thing, like Joel was saying, but I just went into the production aspect of things to be more self-contained, to be self-sufficient, and to work as much as possible. When this wasn't working, I could go do this. And if this wasn't happening, I could do this, to stay as productive as possible. So.
Well, let me ask you guys something. I had Grant Cardone on the show a couple years ago, and he's a billionaire, and he wrote a book called The 10X Rule. And I asked him, I said, Grant, why are artists starving? Tell us, how to make money. Tell us how to make money. We don't know how to make money. He's like, well, artists they use that kind of like money in the hat philosophy. Like, you play your guitar and, people come by and they have a little interaction with you, and you put the money in the hat, right? And you get a little transaction and you feel good about that. It's like a direct, my art, and you appreciate me and my art, and you give me a little money, right? And that's kind of a good feeling. He said, but if you try to blow that up to pay the rent, it doesn't work like that. He said, the reason that I have $1 billion is because I collect money and I go out and get money. He actually has a T-shirt that says, "Who's got my money?" Right? That's his like one of his mantras. And artists typically don't want to be the person that goes out and asks people for the money, right? And it used to be the record label would go do that, and then they would keep most of it, right? So like now that the artist has to ask for the money, now the artist can ask for the money. The artist can go collect the money, right?
Well,
but how do you do that without being the bad guy?
Well, I don't think it makes you a bad guy, but I think it comes along with being an artist. And there's kind of probably a stigma to it where you get into the whole, okay, you want to sell out. You want to be, if you're creating like, okay, you're just selling, this music is for the money. You're not in it for the money. Those kinds of things, which can leave a bad taste in a lot of fans' mouth. I know that from bands that I've liked, that you could tell their next album came out and it was like commercial schlock, So from an artist standpoint, you kind of, maybe not even consciously, you kind of sometimes may subconsciously stay away from that kind of thinking, which is really can shoot yourself in the foot, But I think, it's kind of a balancing act. How do you do it and maintain your integrity or street cred or something like that, but yet do something to generate income? How do you do that? So it's kind of a balancing act to do it both ways. I find.
I also think that the fact that the record industry turned upside down, it's like it's made us all into like people who write invoices and send them to a company, somebody to get paid. So we can't call our manager and go, hey, go after that guy. We didn't get paid for that last tour. I mean, it's all on us now. So I think we're a lot braver about getting paid these days.
Well, yeah, and it took me a real long time to get used to the notion of, Oh, I've got to be a businessman too now. Oh, all right. Okay, I better get Word, and I better, follow up all my, publishing deals and go through all this stuff. And I did that for like 6 months, about 6, 7 years ago. Had to go through all the deals just to really find out where my money went, where it went, who has it. If all these deals, like finding your music on a video game and going, I wonder if I'm getting paid for that, and having to go down that rabbit hole and dig through that. And you have to learn. It's part of the deal now, which in a lot of ways is good, because back in the day before, you'd call your manager or your record company and they could tell you, yeah, here, kid, here's some chicks and some beer, go away. And you would, and that's,
right.
It's not like that now,
So how do you manage that, Joel?
Well, I mean, in terms of the money thing, I kind of already gave you my thought process, and I'm only aggressive in making myself work. And then when I have leverage, that's when I ask for money, because I have an actual, like, hey, this, like, when I had the Rock of Ages gig on Broadway for over 6 years here at home, that was a fantastic thing, because that paid me X amount of dollars a week. And anytime anybody wanted me to go do something, I could say, okay, but here's what I would get paid at Rock of Ages for that day. So it needs to be better than that. And that was a really great thing for me, to actually have leverage, and not some kind of bullshit leverage where you're just telling people, why you either get paid this much or I'm not playing, man. And then, and then you go down to zero. So for me, I just think it's about creating that work until your time is of value, and then actually getting value for that. And it's an important thing to understand that not all gigs are the money gigs, but it is important, obviously, to have some and be able to find that income. But for me, that's always happened through actually making myself valuable enough that people realize they have to pay you. And I'm not aggressive. I'm the wrong guy to ask that. And I don't necessarily agree with, I don't agree with that guy as a person going out, and I'm not a greedy guy. I'm not going to go out and take my money, so to speak. Who's got my money? It's so he may be a billionaire, good for him, but that's not necessarily my philosophy. My thought on it is pretty much like I told you. It's like, work really hard. And if you generate the gigs that pay you something, that will take you a step up from the things you're doing for free at the time. And then people will want you that much more. And if you just stay working, that is really the ultimate key, I think, because you're improving, and then eventually you're getting paid to improve, that's the shit for me, man. I want to do sessions and even teach lessons and play gigs because I'm getting paid to play my guitar. And that for me is the dream. No more than, all right, let me sit and practice my guitar and dream about someday getting paid for it. It's like, we're in the real world. So yeah, exactly. So that in the real world, but that only happens through doing enough of it that, I guess your time is ultimately that valuable.
Well, work at your craft, make it valuable, work at it really hard at what you're doing. So it puts a value on it, and then people can hear it and see it. And then then they can see that it's valuable too. You don't go out there and say, I'm worth this. You have to work up to that.
I think it's really helped me too. Sorry, put my hand in front of the camera there a second. I think it's really helped me to do a variety of things, like Kurdt has too, because then that helps you have that leverage. Like if I say I have a tour with so-and-so that's going to pay me, or people don't even need to know, but if they see that other people want you, they're going to say, oh, you know what? Hey, maybe, we don't want to lose this guy. And maybe, at that point, they'll volunteer to give you a better business deal than you've had, without having to have that shameful moment of going to them and say, hey man, I'm not being compensated properly. And I've just never been that guy. I mean,
and there's a fine line too, between doing that to somebody and losing a gig and being that guy. And then that's going to travel around too. People are going to be like, I don't work with him. Yeah.
What about passive income though? Like, income like publishing and things like that. What if you had like a team of people just calling music supervisors all day long and shopping your songs around while you're out there practicing? I think that's kind of what the 10X rule is talking about. It's just talking about maximizing your expansion, like not being greedy, but like if you just said, hey, here's, set 5 guys in front of a phone and say, go sell products, go shop my songs around, that kind of thing.
The thing that I've found is the more that stuff grows, like I've never had a manager. And the reason is because I've never known anybody that could negotiate it the way I want it to be negotiated. That managers always want you to make money for them. That's really at the end of the day. And so you're talking about all these people like they're magically going to do this stuff for you. But at the end of the day, I find that the more people you kind of get, the more you end up just paying people the money that you'd earn in the first place. So I've kind of been a self-contained guy, I guess, and maybe I've held myself back. I have no idea. There's no way for me to know the answer to that. But I guess I've always just taken that the do-it-yourself approach with everything, and for better or for worse. But I've always just taken I guess that mindset of like, hey man, why would I have any trouble negotiating with somebody? I try to be truthful about it and say, this is my scenario if it ever came down to it. So there's never an angle or never some kind of bullshit thing I need to go through to do business. But hey man, for all I know, you're totally right. And maybe I've sold myself way short, but I don't know.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think you're very successful, and you're working, and and you're happy. I mean, you appear to be happy, and that's really important. That you can't put a value on that either. That's one of the things I've found too. For me, I'm playing music. After all these years, I still get to make music, and I somehow live. That's not lost on me. I mean, that's huge. Whatever I've had to do in this times and stuff like that. I mean, I'm blessed beyond belief that I've got to do this my whole life in one capacity or another. I mean, that is just amazing. I'm really grateful for that. And I think that's important too.
To Joel's point though, Toto is probably done now forever, but Lukather just decided, hey, why am I sitting around watching Netflix all night? I got these managers that are driving me crazy doing stuff I don't want. I might as well just book the tours, manage the band, handle everything. So, that's the whole work ethic both of you have been talking about, where an artist who had an in-demand band at the time just said, I don't need all these layers of stuff between me. I'll just quit watching TV and get on the phone myself.
Exactly. Why not?
Yeah.
I found myself, I don't have the head for like booking agent stuff and talking to club owners and things like that. I tried it for about 10 minutes once and I'm not that guy. I don't want to talk to this, like, especially when you're doing clubs and stuff. It's like, I'm not talking to this moron, And so in that respect, in the booking aspect of things, I've managed, we have booking agents and things like that. But as far as just my own personal work, whether it's production, albums, record company stuff or whatever, I do that myself. But you find where your strengths are, and I'm just not that guy dealing with, booking and that touring and setting up tours. I don't have the head for that, I found. So having somebody do that, a road manager and things like that, I think are important, if you can't do it, so, to find out what you're good at,
Yeah, maybe it's just a matter of like, stick with your strengths. And if you're terrible at something, just hire somebody and try to put the time into, like Gary Vaynerchuk says, he says, hire slow, fire fast. So like, good point. All right, well, we're getting kind of close to the top of the hour here, and I know we've got a lot of questions out there on Twitter. If you guys want to retweet and share the broadcast, that would be great. We're going to answer a couple questions here. Let's see. Oh, okay. Let's see. Joel and Kurt, Roddy Chong, actually, he wanted to ask, what's something surprising you discovered about yourself these last 3 weeks in shelter at home? And I'm going to look for another question while you guys answer that.
How much I love playing guitar. I rediscovered my first love, which is what it was all about.
That he's better than Sonny Landreth at slide guitar.
I'm Dwayne Allman now, man. No, but that's one thing I did, and I thought about that too, is because you can get really distracted doing other things. Doing other things, whether it's production, twiddling knobs and worrying about a compressor or a patch cable or something like that. But getting right down just to the basics of it was learning to play guitar. Not learning to play guitar, well, maybe a bit, but just realizing just playing guitar, just the joy of that was wonderful to reconnect with that for me.
So how about you, Joel? I mean, you've kind of covered it, with the kids and family? And
that's a big part of it. I mean, the thing is that when I am home from tour, this is kind of how I live anyway. Because I'm just kind of home with the kids, and they go to. The only difference is they would go to school, and I would have like a little bit of window in time in there. They go to school at different times, so I'd maybe have a few free hours. But it's very similar to the way I live when I'm home from touring anyway right now. So I guess just that, and that I'm okay with it as long as we come out on the other end somehow and we're okay there. I'm very concerned about that, but if we come out of this all right and we get some semblance of normalcy, beautiful normalcy back, it'll be, hopefully this will just be like a cool era that my kids remember. Like, wasn't that awesome? We had both parents home 24/7, and so.
Dude, I will say a lot of the comments, I'm having a lot of trouble finding questions because people are saying Joel Hoekstra messages me back all the time, like over and over and over again. That's amazing. I mean,
Dude,
that's
awesome.
That's proof of concept that it works when you make real relationships with people and you take the time to care about them. Here they are showing up on this broadcast and being a part of, the family and everything. And it's great when you touch people and I think maybe that's what we are all learning here as a world right now, is that people are important and family is important. And, we're kind of getting back to that. It's kind of weird. Like, I'm doing this Zoom room on Sundays for the community, Kingdom of Rock community, and also guests. We have 2 separate meetups and people are just showing up and just hanging out and being friends, and like people that you never would have ever met before. Like, people are just too busy. So we take, everyone's taking time to get to know people and just like connect. And I think that's one of the benefits of what's happening here for sure. Yeah. So we're right at 46 minutes. So I can't find a lot of questions. People are just being so supportive.
Yeah. People just think you guys are awesome.
Yeah, I think you guys are awesome, man.
Well, we think you're awesome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge for us.
I'll have one for Kurdt, because I didn't get to interview Kurdt at all.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Career highlights. What are some things that stand out for you, dude?
Oh man, for me it was when we played. It was our first European tour when we played the Hammersmith Odeon with Anthrax. And I had always wanted to play Hammersmith Odeon because I've always wanted to be British, and everything that I love, all of my favorite bands are all British, and they always played the Hammersmith Odeon. So that was a huge moment. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll never forget that. Yeah.
Sounds
awesome. It's
awesome,
funny because I'm the same as you. I always wanted to be British.
So Joel, when you were going through your music career, what was that moment where you're like, you just felt I made it? Like, what was that moment where you're just like, this is unreal, I can't believe this is happening?
Probably. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it, Kurdt.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I'm just saying, I think about that all the time now, because I was just saying that I get to do this for a living. Still, I mean, the older I get, the more appreciative I get that I still get to do it. So that to me is huge. And it's not because of big checks or playing big stadiums or any of that stuff. I get to wake up and play guitar. I get to wake up and think about music. I get to do that, so those are the moments when I go, wow, I've made it. Because it wasn't about being a rock star. It was about being able to play music. Yeah. And if the rock star thing happened, that's great. That's fine, But yeah, for me, I think about that every day.
Yeah, just a series of them for me. Just lots and lots of moments where it was like, can you believe this is happening? Like, just lots of little lots of like little moments of clarity. But I think that everything has definitely been baby steps with me in terms of where I've gotten to career-wise. And the things that usually stand out are the very stressful ones. And my audition with Night Ranger was a show. I read at the time, Reb Beach was actually their guitar player, believe it or not. So he needed to miss a show with them, and they said, well, Kelly Kagi knew me from Jim Peterick's band. He said, I know this crazy guy that'll learn like 36 songs and come in on no rehearsal and play the whole show down. And so because I had developed that reputation, they had me do that. They were like, okay, well, we won't cancel the gig. We'll fly that guy in. And I got on stage with them and did a show. And I mean, it was like jumping out of a plane, not knowing if your parachute was going to work. And when the parachute opened, it was really a great feeling. And same with doing the Foreigner thing. When Mick got sick, I had 24 hours notice to learn their show and be on stage with them in front of 18,000 people.
Wow.
And all the guys from Journey, you know, side of stage, Neil Sean, and watching me play down the set, and freaking out because everybody's going, is this going to work?
So your brain can actually cram all that in 24 hours? Because what is that, 30 songs, 20 songs?
No, the Foreigner set at the time, I think was 18 songs, if I'm correct.
That's still crazy. 24 hours, just like
It was a lot, but I sort of took like that at GIT when I went there. They used to tell you, you know, you have to take breaks when they would tell you about practicing. You have to. So I basically stayed up all night and then flew down to Virginia. But I would practice it really hard for like 2-3 hours. And then I would just go lay down and close my eyes and visualize playing it well for like 20-30 minutes, get my head out of there, and then go back in and work again really hard for 2-3 hours. And just did that for the whole time leading up to it. Wow. So just so that it kind of sunk in, but that was those stressful moments are what feels special somehow, that you overcame those, I guess, like a grinding moment where it's like, oh my God, why did I say I would do this? Like, I'm going to fall on my face in front of all these people. But those are the ones that stand out for me. But my first gigs with TSO and my first gig with Whitesnake, all those things stand out. It's always that first show with something new where it feels really like stressful or something. That's really an amazing thing.
I have a fair moment, speaking of TSO, that the first time I did sound for TSO was the first time I had ever ran live sound ever in my life. And I was terrified. We're sitting in like Tampa Arena or wherever it was, and I'm just freaking out going, and Paul's like, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. God rest his soul. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And I'm like, and it was just like, okay, and the show came and I just did it. It was just like, okay, by the end of the show, I was just like, my fingers were cramped. It was just but one of those like, what have I done moments, you know?
So, what was it like getting on stage with Coverdale the first time in an arena?
Oh man.
Like I would have, like, I'm thinking of that, like, I'm like, try to wrap my head around that, you know? Like that seems like that would have been a pretty big moment there.
Yeah, definitely. Working with David, period, is he's got a great way of just having a wonderful sense of humor and being like one of the guys that can almost let your guard down or something and forget about that. And then all of a sudden he'll start talking about Jimmy Page or Richie Blackmore and working with them. And you go, oh yeah, that's right. Like, I'm just nothing. And this dude has like worked with the best of the best, and it's crazy. And so
that's cool.
There's those moments all the time with David, and he's such a wonderful guy. I mean, he's really been an amazing boss so far. And I hope to work with him much more yet. He's just a great dude.
I do have a question from one of the fans here. Anne-Marie Barbudo Fassler, she asked a question for Joel. You described your album Dying to Live as Dio at its heaviest and Foreigner at its lightest. What description would you give the greatly anticipated upcoming Joel Hoekstra?
the greatly anticipated. Well, I don't know. I mean, everybody's gonna have to wait to find out. I don't want to give that away just yet, but I mean, I'm using the same musicians. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel.
How
about that?
That's a good answer.
It's a secret.
Or you just flip them. You go, you know, heavier than Foreigner and whatever it was. Yeah.
Foreigner at its heaviest.
Yes.
Dio at its lightest. Dio-ish at its lightest. Yeah.
Kurt, let me ask you real quick before we go. I wanted to give you and Joel both a chance to say this. When you first got into music, like, were you what age were you when you first got into music? Did you play through the high school band and that type of thing? Were you a metal kid? Like, how did that work?
Well, for me, like probably most musicians my age, my first memory was the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, which was a February. My birthday was in June. I got a toy drum set because after I saw that, it's like, I'm going to do that, you know. And my parents wanted to check and make sure I was serious. So I got a toy drum set for my birthday, beat the crap out of it and never stopped. And then for following Christmas, I got a real one. So I played drums all the way up till I was about 12. And then I played bass for a couple of years. Then I switched to guitar. So I've just been, I've been in it pretty much forever. Then there was a time in high school and junior high where I played football and stuff like that for a while, but I discovered marijuana and beer at that time, so I found that to be a lot easier. Well, it came in the mail. It was the 70s. You know, you're in a band. It was the 70s.
I mean, easy, right?
So, I don't do it anymore, but I was a kid, you know, when I was immortal. But yeah, so I haven't stopped. Nothing's changed, and neither is my maturity level either.
How about you, Joel? What got you into music?
My parents are both classical musicians, so they had me going on cello when I was 3 and piano when I was 7, and I hated them, man. I wanted to quit, and I played baseball, and that was it, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And then I don't know if you guys remember the early days of MTV, because for me the visual of it was as important as the music, but it was seeing AC/DC on MTV in the early days. And I don't even really remember what video it was. It was, remember when MTV had like 5 videos and they just used to circulate like all day. It was like Hall & Oates, and like there was like no videos. So the AC/DC one was on like every hour at least.
And Tom Petty.
I remember just looking at Angus and going, that's the coolest dude I've ever seen in my life. I want to do that. And I hit my mom up for a guitar, and I think she was like, oh, he probably wants to be Segovia or something. And she had no idea what laid ahead. And then, but I think the moment I plugged my awful Electro Westone Direct into our home stereo and played Paranoid with the volume cranked, like for about like, and I only knew one riff. My teacher taught me the one riff, the verse riff to it. And I must have played that like for hours straight. I mean, it's like, what is that, a 4-bar phrase or something like that? And I just played it for hours and hours and hours and hours.
In that stereo?
So, just completely direct tone. Probably, I think I blew the fuse on it at some point, but just trying to get overdrive off of the speakers by cranking it. And I like to say that was really the last career decision I had to make in terms of like what I was going to do with my life. I was just like totally in love with guitar the moment I found it, and it was so cool to me. And Angus Young, definitely, man. And I mean, you got to think about that guy and realize like we all see him going crazy on stage, right? But I want everybody to realize that we have never, ever one time seen 5 seconds of Angus Young ever being on stage looking bored and not into it in his entire career. Is that not completely insane? I mean, never to look like he's phoning it in or like, and think about how many times he must have been sore physically and beaten up from travel and all the stress and all the anxiety, whatever, everything he's dealt with. And that guy has never, not one time, looked like he wasn't totally into it. I mean, he's got to go down as the greatest showman to ever set foot on a rock stage, man.
That's a very good point. That's amazing. You're absolutely right.
I've never thought of that before, but that's totally true. He's like the Energizer Bunny of rock and roll.
Never stops.
Never stops.
I mean, it's just amazing to me. So anyway, I still hail Angus and still think he's the coolest, but I mean, I don't really share a whole lot in common with him. People always thought, oh, how come you don't imitate him then? It's like, well, I don't know. We're our own people, man. But I just have such admiration for that guy and his level of passion for rock and rock guitar.
And he's not done.
Yeah, he's not done, man.
He's not done.
I love him for the songwriting. I mean, the same reason like my Pete Townsend is my hero, because he takes something so simple, and the AC/DC format is just real simple stuff, and you put a good drummer behind it and somebody knows how to vocal hook, and there you go, man. And they keep cranking it out and it works. And I'm just fascinated by that. That is so cool that they can take AC/DC and make albums from it. It's just like, wow, good ones, and those guitar tones. And it's just like, yeah, I'm totally with you, Joel.
I will say this: most of the interviews that we do right at the hour mark, the numbers start to drop off. The numbers have not dropped one bit. So you guys, and I wanted to say that Roddy was saying that he's got a TSO fun fact. He said Joel is on the TSO stage the entire time for 2 hours and 20 minutes. because he plays acoustic for the ballads, and I go to the bathroom during those 3 songs.
And you play Old City Bar, right?
Yeah, I do indeed,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
It's let me tell you, it's a lonely stage out there when that's going on, man.
That's when the light man goes to the bathroom.
All right, well, and I do want to say one thing about Joel is it is 1 a.m. in the morning where Joel is, and he is a trooper, and you guys, he answers all your messages, and he stays up until 1 in the morning just to talk to the fans. So we're Mike and Kurdt and I are on the West Coast, so we still got a couple hours of watching TV or playing guitar or doing whatever after that.
Or answering our social media now because we don't
now
want,
I
we
totally
don't want Kurdt mad at us. We don't want Joel mad at us.
You've made me look really bad, Joel, for the social media thing now. Thanks.
Well, you could blame it on your dogs, Kurdt. Just say my assistants suck.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Just
All right,
a tip there.
Let's do a quick around the horn. Kurdt, got any last words for the awesome fans out there and listeners of the show?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, again, I'll repeat it. Just the fact that I get to play music still after all these years, and people still care. And when we play shows, people show up. That's because of you guys. So thank you very much. I mean,
Yeah, what he said. What he said.
Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, that's really it. Thank you for the support, and hopefully I can continue to get out there, and hopefully the people that are really struggling during this time period find their way through, and hopefully maybe one little tidbit of something that we said can resonate and make a difference. I have no idea, but hey, man, let's all get through this together, and let's rock again.
That's right.
Michael, take us home, Mike. I'm gonna take it easy tonight.
Well, this is the first time I met Kurdt, so this has been awesome. Thank you for taking the time to
my
share
pleasure.
your
Thanks.
wisdom with us.
Thanks for having me.
Joel was always awesome when I was a guitar player, always enthusiastic about everything, always willing to share everything about what he was doing. You know, it's and I've said this before, you know, there are certain people you run into when you're a music journalist where you just see the bright lights, that they love what they do and they're not afraid to share it, and they're not afraid to lift other musicians up. And Joel's certainly been that person. So thanks for that.
And
Thank you, brother.
Awesome
Right back
guitar
at you.
player.
So there's that too.
Yeah.
By the way, the numbers are actually going up right now of viewers. So if you guys want to put your PayPal addresses on there, we'll do another hour. Just we'll do a telethon. No, I'm just kidding.
That's an idea. There you go.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to the
Bye, everybody.
We're doing this
Bye. Nice to meet you, Michael.
day,
Yeah, same here, Kurdt. Take care.
twice a day, and sometimes 3 times a day. And Sundays, we're going to have our first big community meetup. Just join the Kingdom of Rock Backstage Pass Facebook group, and there'll be an invite in there for you. And of course, guests, I'll know we're going to be sending out emails, about the guest meetup to meet all the guest show. Kind of a group for all those that have been on the show. And so if anybody's got any questions, hit me up, Matt at kingdomofrock.podcast@gmail.com, kingdomofrock.com, and everyone else's addresses are down here at the bottom of the scrolling bar right down there. So check that out.
And helping.
And Kingdom of Rock out.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much,
Good night.
guys.
See ya.
Take